All the apps on your phone are optimized to get you to tap on them as much as possible, which is a balance of simplicity while still looking iconic. But today we're gonna throw that balance out the window by redesigning all these apps to look totally overcomplicated, then super simplified. And at the end, we can see which version looks better. Welcome back to Fix the World. To start, let's go with the phone app. Now this icon has been around forever, basically, since the main function of smartphones is to be a phone. This is obviously just a very generic looking icon of a telephone. And while basically nobody uses this kind of phone anymore, just the icon itself has transcended time, and I think it's gonna stick around for a while. So keeping that in mind, I think our overcomplicated version should just be like an actual telephone like this. And since we don't want to just have a plain background like that, I'm thinking we instead go for more of this vibe, where it's showing the entire telephone with the whole like brick part of it. Might as well start with that dial just because it is so iconic. Like going even farther back in time to the metallic phones rather than the plasticky stuff that I'm used to, at least. The next most iconic part is probably just the telephone itself. I don't know if that has a separate name, but just the part you put against your face. Now let's try this guy. Maybe we do like a rectangle selection and a circle selection on both ends. And after we mask that out, it looks like this. Okay, we can work with that. Let's just rotate it on its side. Getting quite a bit bigger. I don't know. I don't love that angle. Like, I know I said I wanted top down, but I might want it even tilted just a little bit. Like, I almost want to see some of the side of the phone like this too. We'll do that. And then to compensate, this has got to be at a way different angle. That looks dramatic right now, but once we shrink it down, okay, that won't be too bad. I think I'm just going to piece a bunch of these pictures together. Like this top piece right here of this phone, I'm thinking it could be a much more central part of our design. Let me just play with the perspective a little bit. Yeah, okay, that looks pretty good. Let me clean up those edges though. That's kind of a rough line. My strategy here is just gonna be putting all of our elements into the picture, and then at the end we can actually make them cohesive by adding shading, etc. Now we need to somehow convey the like holder piece right here. It's almost like little claws clipping onto it. Let's see what we can find to help us with that. Okay, this one's looking promising. To start, let's grab these little clippy parts. What if we put this in the back of everything? Ooh, okay, almost fits right there. Like with those clippies coming up from the top. I'm gonna try to sharpen it a little bit just because it's so like blurry. And I really like the way these are sticking out on the left side, but on the right side, it's a little messy. So what I'm gonna do is just take it off from this side, duplicate it, flip it, and just place it right around there. Now we have this front panel, but we need the other two sides and the top especially. Oh yeah, we had the rest of this phone. And I'm thinking we just get rid of the details that are already on here. Actually, maybe just the dial, because the other details are kind of fun. What if we do the patch tool and drag it down to like right there? Okay, that worked for some of it. Let's just go like one piece at a time. I think it gets the job done. This is also gonna be kind of a background element. It's not like a major part of the phone. Maybe now we use the healing brush. Yeah, it kind of added some weird texture, but we'll say that's intentional. Okay, cool. Now we have this item we can put in the very back. This is working well, but parts of it aren't. So what if instead these are like the side panels? So on one side, we've got this, since it'll only go to about there. And on the other side, we'll do the same sort of thing. Okay, that's okay. Okay, just the top panel. What am I doing? Maybe wood. Ooh, that's a good idea. Yeah, like that sort of base right there. Let's just get a new layer. We're gonna be painting in black. And let's just get a bunch of shadows where there would be natural shadows. Okay, even just that's giving it some nice depth on the dial there. I don't know if this label piece is doing it for me though. Maybe we brighten up the phone piece here. Yeah, that helps it a lot. One of the problems is this bottom bar thing isn't doing anything for us. So let's just stretch this out so it can go even taller. Then let's move our dial down, make it a little larger on the icon. Since remember, this is gonna be super small on phones like this. We got a lot of fun shapes to choose from. I'm thinking one of these will probably be the best. I'll go for this one. So that'll go right about here and it'll go down below the phone. Realistically, how does that look? Let me look at these two side by side. Yeah, that'll do. Not perfect, but let's move on to the simple one. Sounds a little more fun right now. If you ask me, this is just about as simple as it gets. Just like a weird looking shape on a plain background. I think just about the only way we could simplify this is by making a more normal shape on a simple background. And convenient enough, phones are not shaped like that anymore. We just got rectangles. Let's start with the gradient, since we can probably keep that just about the same. And we'll get our shape. And we can round off the corners using this little edge thing. Make that white. Wow, that like is so depressingly simple. I mean, I guess if we wanted, we could make it just like the outline instead of filled in like that. Oh, then one detail that I think we should add. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the whole green versus blue bubble battle between Apple and Android, where essentially iPhone users will just consider themselves upper class citizens because they send blue bubbles to each other instead of green. And considering that, it's a little weird to me that Apple embraces the green on icons like the phone and messages. So if Apple wants to be better than everyone else, which they clearly do, I guess they might as well embrace the blueness that they're already trying to push so hard. Something like that, maybe? That does definitely look worse. I will admit that. Instead of just shifting from dark to the lighter side, you also kind of gotta shift to green slightly. That way it can keep more of the saturation while still looking brighter. And while we're at it, might as well update the messages icon as well. Cut that out. Bam. Easy. Simple phone and messages. There you go. I will admit these don't look better than the original, but it's still up to you guys to decide though. Let me know. Now moving on to another famous green app. We've got Duolingo. Now there's a lot of memes going around about Duolingo, about how if you don't do your Spanish lesson or something, then he's gonna come get you. And while they've fully embraced that and tried to like play into the meme and be fun about it, it actually used to be way worse. So the one we're used to now is kind of a pretty cute looking little owl guy. The one before that looked like this, which is essentially the same thing, just a little more awkward. Like they hadn't really solidified their style yet. Then we go back one more generation to this. Like, are you kidding? Like, this one actually warrants the scary factor that a lot of people are playing into. It's obviously not realistic, but it's got like texture to it. I don't know, the face is so bad. Anyway, they escaped the uncanny valley by going even more simple. But what if we try escaping the uncanny valley by going the opposite direction and just making it way realistic? And I'm kind of curious to see if that'll help or make it even more scary, but it's worth going for. Let's see. I want to generally actually keep the same shape. Like I do like this layout where it's just like a really zoomed in piece of his face. So let's just overlay some feathers onto here. Like, ooh, yeah, like this. Maybe we can kind of just play around and select along the edges that we want to. Okay, that's a decent start. Again, let's just warp it to fit our shape a little nicer, which actually is working pretty well. Let's just keep going with even more of those feathers. This time coming down at a different angle. And we'll just do something like that. And again, get some more warping to fit the shape. I'm gonna try to kind of rotate this edge so that it lines up with the other feathers a little nicer. One more pile of feathers, at least for these ones, going basically the opposite direction as the others. We want this to maybe even be smaller feathers, and let's just select even more. I know that's kind of a pretty rough cutout. These are very organic shapes, so I think it'll work out doing this sort of rotation. That way on this side, the feathers can go straight down almost. This is a little trickier than I thought it would be. That's the general theme that happens with these videos. I think a big part of this is obviously the big ol' eyeball. So let's try to find an owl eye, since Duolingo is an owl duo, which they chose an owl because it's supposed to represent wisdom, being a language learning app. And you might think he's green just because it's a little more poppy than like brown or white or something. But apparently when the company was coming up with a design, one of the co-founders said, you can do anything you want, but I hate the color green. So the design team decided to literally do the one thing that they were tasked not to do. And if you ask me, that's kind of awesome. Just gonna carefully select around this eyeball real quick. There we go. Oh, that's gonna look so messed up. Oh. That makes me feel all kinds of uncomfortable. Okay, let's try to line this up first before we actually fit it in with the feathers. Do I want to stretch it out so it's long? Oh, that looks so disturbing. Ew, ew. Oh, that's so bad. How about this baby? Maybe we do the baby. Oh, that's so dumb looking. Now you might be wondering why I don't just like do this and recolor it and call it good, but I'm not that lazy. Not right now, at least. Might change my mind later. That's a little better. It at least fits like the color scheme better, where it's like black and white rather than like black and orange. It's looking like I gotta cut into these feathers a little bit. Kind of like that is decent. This is a scary looking bird. I'm a little worried for our results. Ooh, I kind of like this one. It's got nice like layers to it. Now, I'm not gonna just directly flip it right at the same spot, because that way you can kind of see the duplicates on the opposite side. So I'm gonna actually overlay it just a little bit like this, and maybe make one of the sides bigger, you know, just trying to make it look a little more uneven. I want this feather to go above the other one. And the brush I'm using is actually very feathered out. Feather. That's so dumb. Anyway, this should be a lot easier to switch the color on. We'll just shift it over to a nice green. Yeah, that actually looks really solid. Jeez. We should probably do an owl beak, right? That would make the most sense, but that also looks kind of lame relatively. Like it's so thin from the front view. Maybe we'll do a thicker beak. Yeah, that's pretty good. I like the width, you know? Drop that in here. Whoa, that is very bright. Okay, starting just something like that. Whoa, that looks so crazy. Duo, what happened? Let's just feather out these edges. Now let's try to find some bottom feathers. We want them to be similar to these blue ones we found. Something like that might do. Try to rotate it so it's kind of centered around the correct spot. And let's put that at the back. Now we can select out the specific feathers again that we don't need. Let's apply a similar hue saturation sort of thing. Trying to match the colors of the other ones as much as possible. Let's just get an overall brightness contrast on it, make it darker just a little bit. Then I'm also gonna just apply some shading so that like certain parts of it are more affected by the darkness. Let's flip that, put it on the other side. Let's duplicate the eye. Or maybe I want to just use the other eye that was actually on him. I think that might look a little nicer since the angle will be a little more accurate to real life, obviously. Wow, this looks so crazy. Like that's not natural. I think we might already know the answer to the question we had earlier of if this would be more scary or less scary. It's pretty terrifying. Let me get like a nice shadow under the beak. Maybe even some shading under these feathers and even on top. Wow, this makes me feel... Whoa. You know, that is like really strange and it's very far from perfect right now, but I am kind of just feeling weird looking at it. So I think I'm gonna wrap it up there. All right, there you go. Complicated Duolingo. That's it. Now, I actually lied to you guys earlier. These are not the only 3 iterations of Duo. There's actually an even older version, which looked something like this. And honestly, I'd put this at second best behind this one. It's got nice simple line art with the hidden Duo spelled out right here. It's not super cohesive because all the lines are different thicknesses, along with either having sharp angles like this or rounded edges. But I think we can kind of take inspiration from this and make our own, essentially just having that green background, and then we'll add cleaner versions of these lines on top. So we'll start with our eyeballs here, and this will be the beak. Let's just edit our shape here. Now, I'm not too stressed about copying the like DUO shapes. I think we just make it look aesthetic, and that's the main goal. Now, there's probably an easier way to do this, but I have yet to learn it. So we're going the long way, and we'll get the main big line going up and over. That makes him look angry. Maybe that'll help. That's what they're going for, right? He's angry that you didn't do your lesson. Anyway, that's looking pretty fun. Let me shrink it down to fit a little nicer. Yeah, there you go. While it's more complicated in terms of shapes, it's way more simple in terms of color. And that counts for me, at least. Now, I don't know if either of these are better, but they're definitely what we were going for. Nice and simple and complicated. Like if they alternated between these, you would still be able to tell what they all are because they're all so similar while also being so different. And next up, we're gonna move on to Amazon. I'm actually going to start with the simple icon first this time. Now, I had a lot of disorganized thoughts for this one, so I thought it would be a good idea to actually sort that out before actually going into Photoshop and designing. The app I'm using to organize all this is called Milanote, and they're sponsoring today's video. It's a great tool to visually organize your creative ideas. Now, the current app icon is already so simple. They kind of already beat me to the punch, so I'm just gonna drop in a bunch of inspiration to see where we can even go with this. Amazon's pretty iconic for a lot of things, including just the name Amazon, which could refer to something like the Amazon forest or the Amazon warriors. If we wanted to go the forest route, we would probably want to do some sort of like green coloring. And while that would look nice in its own way, I just don't see that company being associated with forests and nature. And honestly, I just don't know enough about the Amazon warriors, so looks like we're going with real life inspiration. I really love these trucks. They've always reminded me of like beetles crawling around on the road. But this is obviously something just out of my imagination, not something directly to do with the company, which I guess just leaves us back with the original box idea. So to brainstorm that, I'm just gonna start a new board. Now, when you start a new board, you can choose from over 100 templates, but since I like doing things my own way, I'm just gonna start from scratch. I'm thinking we go for more of like a side perspective for this one. And while just showing the box like that is great, I think the fun from packages comes from what's inside of them, obviously. So maybe we do another one where we've got the same sort of 3D looking box, and inside there's endless possibilities, just like some rays coming out, you know? My favorite part about Milano is I can move things around, and look at that, the arrows follow it. That's so nice. I love taking physical notes, but they get so disorganized, and this just makes it so much easier. If you're interested in getting this organized, check out Milano in the link in the description. It's honestly pretty awesome. And honestly, I'm not sure which design would look nicer, so I'm just gonna share this whole board with my sister, and she'll be able to directly add comments on here so I know what I'm doing. You can actually see the edits happening real time, which is pretty awesome. Okay, she likes this one. What's she think about the open one? This one's more fun though. It looks like the box is full of possibilities, which is what I'm going for. I'm glad that could like be expressed. I'm actually just gonna drop that drawing into Photoshop, and let's just get going. This should be pretty easy to crank out real fast. Okay, there we go. There's the fully realized version of our simplified logo. Honestly, I think it turned out pretty well. Again, it's definitely more complicated than the original, but it's still just really simple. It's got nice colors going on. Now, moving on to the complicated version, I think we actually go back to the simpler design and just retexture it, make it look like a real box. Because honestly, if I didn't have the context of knowing what Amazon was, I would not be able to tell that this is a box. It kind of just looks like a weird smiley face with like a nose. So to avoid this predicament, let's get some cardboard. Let's get our Amazon logo back in here, and we'll overlay it differently so it looks like it's actually printed on rather than just being an image put on top of an image, which the main way to do that is by making some of the brights peek in from the bottom, just like so. Yeah. That already looks pretty realistic. Anyway, maybe we can just go for some solid blue tape just because that sticks with our themes. Sticks. My brain's fried right now. I'm doing this one that's kind of peeled up, almost mimicking the original logo, and we'll give it a really subtle drop shadow. And I'm actually gonna apply some very subtle shading. Don't worry, this isn't it. I'm just getting the things in place. If we just turn these lines down to super low opacity, it almost looks like the tape is going along with the ridges of the cardboard box. And since I didn't put one of those lines on this ridge, it subtly looks like the tape is coming up, which would actually justify this shadow being below it. I'm a genius. But seriously, I think that's about where I want it to be. I'm just gonna add the shading around the edges again, and I think that's about it for this one. Cool. Realistic Amazon. I think that's about as good as it's gonna get. All right, next up, we got a quick one. We're moving on to the Mail app / Gmail, because they're basically the same thing. Now, the simple version of this is pretty dang obvious. As you can see, they're both just mimicking the back of an envelope. So all I'm gonna be doing is getting an envelope color. Then we'll get a triangle up in here. This will be essentially the same color, just slightly brighter than the rest, and more of shadowy colors, of course. It's like very unclear what's going on. I imagined this in my head and it was a lot better. There you go, simple Mail app. It's nothing to write home about. Gosh. Anyway, moving on to the complicated one. I'm liking the blue background on this. It's kind of like very sky-like. And what's the only time envelopes are going to be in the air? Carrier pigeons. There's probably other times where they're in the air, but that's what I'm thinking of at least. Gonna start with this envelope. I kind of like how like grimy it is. it's still going to take up the majority of the icon itself. And to represent the carrier pigeon, we're going to have it carrying the envelope, literally, just with its talons. These are gnarly. Jeez, look at that. There's no way that's a bird. Are you kidding? I don't think that's realistic at all, but I don't care. We flip that, rotate it, make it nice and big. Just to make it look like it's actually carrying the letter, we're gonna cut off the edges of the talons here. So it's like it's almost grabbing the back of the letter. And let's get the shading looking a little nicer. And to cap it all off, we'll get a nice sky in the background. That's so cheesy. All right, there we go. It's not even really realistic. It's just kind of funny, which sometimes that's all you need. Now, real quick, before we get into our final design, first we're gonna go over a couple bonus apps. So the first time I redesigned app icons, I went over the weather app, essentially making it so the complicated version would just show your real-time weather, like animated rain and everything. This would be the actual icon. So just as a quick side note, I want to do the same thing for the compass and the ruler. The compass is pretty self-explanatory. Then as for the ruler app, this is kind of something else. The actual function of it is so that you can measure the distances like this by essentially virtually placing 2 dots and connecting the line. And while that's great and all, it's not gonna be totally accurate because it's relying on a lot of like processing and software. So what I'm thinking is they just make it like an actual ruler, like still keep this function, but like on the side here, what if it just showed a bunch of notches like going across this? Obviously you can't measure a big distance with that, but I feel like that's almost more useful since you know you can trust it, you know? Oh yeah, then for the actual app icon itself, it's just gonna show the actual measurement of like a centimeter or something on it. That's not gonna be useful at all, but like, might as well. And you know, while we're at it, let's make it so that the wallet app icon just shows your credit card details on it, so they're right there for easy access. I'm sure there will be no consequences with that. Anyway, moving on, we got the final app, Firefox. Now this logo has actually had a decent amount of drama surrounding it. Here's a little chart of the evolution of the Firefox logo. As you can see, it kind of just continually gets more and more simplified, and most people were okay with that, even up through 2018. And then 2019 rolls around and they change it to this. Anyway, people were just getting way too heated about it, like everyone does about everything on the internet. But to help calm them down, I'm obviously here to remake it, and everyone's gonna love it. We're going the complete opposite direction, full-on realism. So I think we just start with an earth and space. Now you might think I should just start grabbing fox photos like this and working with that, which would be the move, but believe it or not, Firefox is not a fox. Firefox is the nickname for a red panda. So we're not talking about this guy. We're talking about these. I love them. I don't think it's a hot take to say that these are way cuter. Hello, Jack Black. So let's try to stitch together a bunch of photos of these guys. Okay, this side view one's pretty nice. I'm gonna generally try to keep the same shape as the original. And we can give this a nice warp to fit the curve a little nicer. Now, a very notable part of the original logo is that it has no legs whatsoever, just the little arms hugging the planet. So that'll be a decision we have to make. I don't know what decision I'm gonna make, but it's one we will have to do. I think we exaggerate the tail even more, going even farther up. Yeah, okay, let's get an isolated paw. Oh, that's so cute. Lesser panda, is that what it's called? Lesser panda. Are you kidding? They're not lesser, they're just small. Oh, it looks so cute. You know, I'm gonna download him just for encouragement in the corner. Yeah, you get to be right here. A paw. I'm on a mission right now. Let's stay focused. Maybe that's good. You know, we'll work with it. Right around here. Okay, then we're gonna have to do some trickiness. We can take out the paws. And I guess we take out the legs. I don't know. It might be kind of weird, but okay, then let's get a replacement head as well, because that is not cutting it right now. The saturation is definitely off, so we'll have to compensate for it. Oh, that's so funny. Look at him go. Wouldn't be Firefox without some fire. Let's light that tail on fire. Oh man, he's gonna be so sick. You know, just going along with the flow. That's so sick. The earth definitely needs a shadow, just like right where the Firefox red panda is at. Then to actually really sell the effect, I'm gonna make the fire glowing onto the guy. Get a new layer on top of everything. We're gonna select a nice like yellowish orange, and hypothetically with a nice blend mode, yep, we can draw on some areas where the fire should be affecting even more. So with that, let's just make it a little darker, but we can make certain areas not affected, mainly the ones that would be touched by fire. I'm just gonna scoot the whole thing up slightly. There you go. Sickest app icon of all time. Anyway, let's move on to the simple one, last one for today. And since we're basing our design off of a red panda, I think we should take some inspiration from their faces. Let's start with our pen tool. We can just pretend that this is perfectly symmetrical and there's nothing wrong with it. We're of course gonna make the color white. Okay, then maybe we just get some circles for eyeballs, and the final piece just being the cheek one. Ooh, then actually I do want to get the nose back in here. The pieces aren't fitting together super well, so I'm just gonna space them out differently. Honestly, I don't love it, but it's not the worst either. Maybe it would be better if we just put this guy on there. Yeah. There you go. Simple version 1, simple version 2. It's up to you, your choice. Honestly, this is my favorite one, I gotta say. Simple, complicated, there you go. I'm really happy with a lot of the designs we made today. Here's what they'd look like on an actual phone if you're curious. Here's me putting my favorites on the globe. I couldn't narrow it down to one, so here's a bunch. Then for next episode, let's make some better money. The Money 2 video is one of the classic Oats Jenkins videos. And while I did suggest a lot of really solid fixes, it was mainly a joke video. So now I'm curious what you guys would do to actually redesign the bills. Leave a comment with your suggestions. I see those easier if you're a channel member. Thank you guys for the support. And with that, it's time to subscribe.